Welcome to Ukraine Today. My name is Sam Kearley and I am joined by Ilija Todorovich, a Senior Protection Officer with UNHCR. Ilija, welcome to the programme.
Thank you for having me.
We are often reporting about the humanitarian situation in East Ukraine, and the numbers of IDPs and refugees keeps going up and up and up. In your opinion, as we speak today, how many internally displaced people are there in Ukraine?
Well, officially registered, there's over 1.3 million internally displaced, which makes this population the 9th largest IDP population in the world. So it's quite a large number. We think there are 5 million persons in need that are facing humanitarian consequences due to the war. So in that 5 million, 3.2 are in dire need, that really are the target of the focus, and about 500,000 of them live along that front line. And those are the ones with the highest focus. There should be the highest focus of the humanitarian response because they have the highest needs.
And when we talk about IDPs and we talk about refugees, what is the right term to be using?
Okay, this is so important to make the distinction between an internally displaced person and a refugee, because sometimes people don't understand the difference. Now, the difference lies in the fact that a refugee flees his country of origin, which would be Ukraine, going to any other country, seeking asylum, seeking refuge. And there he becomes a refugee. Now, as they flee, people leave Ukraine, they're also in that refugee protection status as well.
Okay. So you talk about 1.3 million internally displaced.
Correct.
And that is not then including people who have fled the country.
Correct. There's another 900 or so Ukrainians who are now refugees or in a refugee-like situation in other countries.
And what is the country that most of these refugees have fled to?
The largest number is in Russia, the Russian Federation. But surprisingly enough, there is a huge number in Belarus and in Poland, and then a few other countries in Europe.
So when we talk about the significantly larger number of 1.3 million internally displaced, which cities in Ukraine is seeing the largest influx of IDPs?
Okay, probably would be good for your viewers to know the locations in a more broader sense. So the largest concentration of IDPs, which is what people would expect, are in the east, in the government-controlled areas of the east of Lugansk, Donetsk, and then the three buffering oblasts like Kharkiv and Zaporizhia and Dnipropetrovsk. So that's where the full concentration is. There are also very large numbers in Kiev, Lviv, and in Odessa, which is hosting a large number of urban refugees who have fled the east. What's important here to note is there's also the IDPs coming from Crimea, and those are mostly in Kiev, Odessa, Kherson, and a lot of them are in the west.
How are these cities coping with the influx of IDPs?
Well, let's just say that the absorption capacity varies depending on which place of Ukraine we're looking at. So if we're looking at the east, the absorption capacity is quite full, and hence the authorities are very, let's say, very vocal in trying to push IDPs to move westwards or central, where the absorption capacity is more amenable to accepting more if there is a need. The larger cities are probably not as problematic as long as the IDPs have enough financial means to rent. And as you know, renting is not very easy, and it can be quite expensive in the cities. So there is absorption capacity in the west and in the central parts of Ukraine. But in the east, it's pretty saturated.
And what do you see the government in Ukraine doing to help and support the IDPs?
Well, they're trying as hard as they can, but it's very difficult in this economic situation. So they've had to rely a lot on the excellent work from a lot of volunteer groups and organizations at the very grassroots level that have done the majority of the assistance to the IDPs. The government needs to be commended for the fact that they have passed the IDP law last year, and they have put in place a lot of legal frameworks on how the assistance can be there. But there's still a lot that has to be done to open up greater access to the humanitarian community into these non-government controlled areas. That has been quite problematic. And that's something that the government should listen to the international community and at least allow for the international assistance to help the civilians that are trapped, the civilians that are in need. As I said, there's around 3.2 million of civilians in that area that are in great need of humanitarian assistance.
Okay, so as the conflict continues, the numbers of IDPs are going to continue to rise and rise and rise.
Well, I hate to predict things, but the past has shown that the numbers have risen quite dramatically, and since the war is still more or less, even though there's, if you can call it a ceasefire or some type of a lull in the fighting due to the Minsk agreement, number two, it's hard to say how it will play itself out, but yes, people are still coming to seek become IDPs in the rest of Ukraine.
And just one final question. Have you personally seen stories, either related to the humanitarian crisis or not, which have been completely missed by Western media?
Yes, yes. Some of them, let me tell you some of the stories that are not in the focus. It's Crimean IDPs, and how after 1 year of fleeing the Crimea autonomous area, how are they coping? So those stories haven't been told. Other stories are the efforts made by local authorities on trying to find some types of longer-term solutions for IDPs, rather than just short-term handouts, food, clothing, but maybe more long-term solutions. There have been some of these efforts that have been done in the West, and I think that needs to be also put the spotlight on that as well.
Ilija, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Once again, you have been watching Ukraine Today, where we have been joined by Ilija Todorovich, a senior protection officer with the UNHCR. Thank you for watching.